Thank you, Maria and Derek and Houston, for inviting me here this evening. This is a little bit like a Catholic church. You can come forward if you like. Everyone goes to the back. You don't really have to do that. I hope you can hear me at the back there. Thank you, Derek. He invited me to come along this evening to say a few words. And as they say in Ireland, Begona August Ragamo, which means say little but say it well. So I'll do my best in the next 15 minutes or so that Derek's allowed me this evening. As Maria just mentioned, I'm here on a bit of a working holiday, and this weekend's RANSCO meeting coincides with the ICO conference back in Dublin, where my colleague Des O'Neill is presenting the keynote speech this weekend on the growing topic of traffic medicine. And having experienced the standard of driving here in New Zealand the past few days, I suspect I may learn a little bit more simply by being here rather than being in his presentation. This is my third visit to New Zealand, and I must say I'm loving every minute of it. I've already caught up with a few old friends while I've been here, and I had the pleasure of beating Peter Ring at tennis on Tuesday, so that made the visit even more enjoyable. What am I doing here at this time? Well, as I said earlier, it is a working holiday. I'm here to enjoy your country, your people, and your hospitality. But also to learn a little bit more about how my peers actually do things here in New Zealand, and hopefully to witness Ireland beat the All Blacks for the first time at Eden Park on the 9th of June. Well, with the World Cup tournament now something of a faded memory, at least for the Irish, I still dream at least of the boys in green one day beating the All Blacks. And I think that our gutsy display against Australia, which seemed to win many friends here at least, gave us grounds for optimism. And I think should give all of you who are supporting the All Blacks here this evening cause for concern, I respectfully suggest. But I have another reason too for being optimistic. The other week, while I was walking along Mulranny Beach, not far from where I live in County Mayo, I stumbled across an old bottle in the sand. And being the environmental type that I am, I picked it up with the intention of throwing it away, and all of a sudden there was this great big puff of white smoke. And this genie appeared and he looked at me and he said, Liam, he said, for releasing me from this prison of this bottle for the past 30 years, I'm prepared to grant you one wish. What will it be? And I was so stunned by this. I thought about it for a minute and I said, well, I'm going to New Zealand in a couple of weeks on a working holiday, and I'll be going to Eden Park on the 9th of June. And I would love Ireland to beat the All Blacks for the first time. And the genie rubbed his beard and thought about my request, and he said, come off it, Liam. He said, you're asking far too much, surely. I mean, you know, think about the strength of the other side. They've got players like, you know, Carter and Cruden and McCaw and stuff like that. He said, you're simply asking far too much. Try again, give me another wish. So I said, well, fair enough, and I thought about it, and I said, look, I'm an eye doctor at the Mayo Eye Clinic, and I'd like Avastin to be proved safe for ophthalmological use and approved by the European Union. With that, the genie thought about it and he said, how many points would you like Ireland to win by? But I think you might appreciate that story reveals my frustrations on both a personal and a professional level. And I'm sure I'm not alone regarding the latter. So this evening, Derek invited me to share with you a few stories about professional developments in Ireland and some of the issues we're grappling with there. Much like New Zealand, Ireland expects a 60% increase in the demand for healthcare services during the next 12 years. And consequently, in Ireland, we have the challenge of replacing outdated management systems and practices with modern ways of doing things so as to meet that demand and to remain in step with international best practice. At the Mayo Eye Clinic, we like to think we play an essential part in that change. I'm continually inspired, as indeed most Irish people are, by the words of John F. Kennedy, who once wrote, or said, I think, change is the law of life, and those who only look to the past or the present are sure to miss out on the future. Yet I'm deeply concerned that there are many professional colleagues in Ireland who will miss out on the future as a consequence of their inability to be proactive and to cope with change. We all need to manage our businesses, to grasp technology, and to stay at the forefront of medical standards. If nothing else, we cannot afford to lag behind the price-competitive eye surgeons of India and ambitious optometrists looking for a bigger slice of the pie. Nor can we allow cost effectiveness and price competition to become the new standard for making clinical decisions. So, last year we relocated to newly renovated premises, formerly the residence of the local Catholic priest, following his recent fall from grace. And that's another story, I tell you. One of our major challenges was to replace the clinic's filing system. Previously, patients came to the clinic, they filled out a form with personal details and outlined their eyesight problems before our receptionist transcribed by hand the patient's responses onto another form. Our clinicians would then review the notes with the patient before any decisions on surgery or treatment were made. We wanted a 100% paperless office so that we could maximise space in the clinic for patients and also for ourselves. Our search eventually led us to Houston Medical, and we are now the first clinic in Ireland to adopt their VIP technology. Now, on arrival at the clinic, patients receive a tablet screen. They fill out a form by simply checking a box on the screen. And elderly patients are assisted by our receptionist, and especially those with vision difficulties. The electronic forms guide patients through the questions. They prompt them to, pick and rank questions about their symptoms, and they can also complete their details online before they turn up at our clinic as well. So it's now possible for each of our 5 clinicians and our practice management team to access client files on the server wirelessly and simultaneously. We've made huge cost savings and created more time to enjoy a pint or two at Matt Malloy's, 100 yards away from our clinic, and from where we can still access patient information. Well, we are Irish, remember. I have to thank Derek and his team for helping us to achieve this outcome so effortlessly. Like most self-respecting clinicians, we are constantly looking at ways to reduce incidences of retinopathy and AMD. And at our surgery, we offer a seamless service from diagnosis to management and treatment, including retinal screening, laser therapy, and vitrectomy. We treat patients who are in both the proliferative and the non-proliferative stages. And additionally, and perhaps unusually, we offer patients an alternative, holistic approach. Let me explain. Ancient Greek physician Hippocrates once wrote, "If someone wishes for good health, one must first ask oneself if he is ready to do away with the reasons for his illness. Only then is it possible to help him." I've often been inspired by those words, and I believe that until we truly understand the underlying causes of eye ill health, all forms of external intervention will only ever address the symptoms and not the cause. Ireland has a comparatively high rate of blindness caused by diabetes, much bigger than any other European country in the Western world. So why should this be? To my mind, at least biologically, Irish people are no different from South Africans, from Australians, from English people, or even our New Zealand counterparts, except on the rugby field, that is. Now, when I went to school, I was warned in no uncertain terms that one activity in particular would make you go blind. It wasn't diabetes. And I have to say that, like all boys, I was determined to test the proposition, but in my case it only caused a mild case of myopia. Some experts put it down to the Guinness and a poor diet, and while they may be contributing factors, I don't believe that they are the underlying cause. I put it down to something less physical and more psychological, and that is low self-esteem. But don't just take my word for it. Our famous writer W.B. Yeats once observed, "All Irishmen have an abiding sense of tragedy, which sustains them through temporary periods of joy." So when you look back in history, Ireland has suffered stressful and troubled times for centuries. And even in my lifetime, the troubles in the north have impacted negatively on the psyche of the Irish people. And to this, the fact that we've had to cope with English occupation, sectarianism, emigration, sporting underachievement, clerical abuse, and now a struggling economy. And the list goes on and on. So consequently, we're left with a feeling that we don't deserve to have our needs met, and that we have no joy in our lives, feeling like martyrs and anxious about our futures. Freud discovered that the body and the psyche are irrevocably linked, and researchers in the field since, people such as Wilhelm Reich, Fritz Perls and Louise Hay, have greatly contributed to the resurgence of the body of information that now constitutes metaphysical science. Its link with the physical is critical to permanent healing and is by no means out of step with conventional healing. In fact, on the contrary, I believe it is medicine's most valuable teammate. With that in mind, we have introduced a procedure at our clinic to make the most of the metaphysical aspects of treatment so as to release a patient's spiritual and emotional blockages. On arrival, patients are served American ginseng tea and a mackerel sandwich. Studies of American ginseng used in diabetes treatment all conclude and demonstrate that ginseng tends to lower blood glucose levels and A1C levels. According to the Mackerel Institute in Galway, the fresh mackerel called straight out of the Atlantic is omega-3 fatty acids and has been shown to improve microcirculation, retinal edema and visual acuity in the early stages of diabetic retinopathy without a major risk of hypoglycemia. Then our patients are invited to sit quietly for 30 minutes, to pray and to meditate and to confront emotions, to forgive the past and to open the doors to their hearts. And we find that this brings on with them a state of relaxation that can also lower their blood sugar levels. We then explain to them, as you expect, that diabetes is a disturbance of the metabolism from a lack of insulin secreted from the pancreas or from its inability to function normally. We then explain to them that the pancreas is the gland linked to the solar plexus, which deals with emotions, desires and all intellectual activities. And then we go on to explain, as you would expect, that pancreatic disorders indicate imbalance on an emotional level. And if they're diabetic, our patients are often very, very emotional. So we get them to recognize some personality traits. For example, those that tend to blame themselves too readily, or they feel an inner sadness from an unmet desire to be loved, or simply they drink too much. And there's plenty of them. So we educate them that diabetes is a sign that they need to get their act together, to acknowledge all the goodness that flows freely in their lives and in the world, and to enjoy the moment and live for the present. We also have on hand the services of a masseur, a hypnotherapist and an acupuncturist. And all of these body treatments have been shown to be highly beneficial for our patients. And as you can see, we do our very best to make them feel loved and special. Now, while these treatments help, we tell our patients, as you might expect, that their best protection is having their eyes screened with a digital camera when they're first diagnosed with diabetes, and then every year. So where will all of this end, I wonder? While I'm a little wary of crystal ball gazing, I think that given these recent trends and advances in medical science, the ophthalmology industry may look very different in years to come than how it looks today. So I'm going to stick my neck out and make some predictions for the future. Recently I was reading a most interesting book by American author Ray Kurzweil titled The Age of Spiritual Machines. I don't know if anyone here has read it. And his book focuses on the future of technology and its impact on the delivery of professional and medical services. And he observes how technology is replacing outdated workplace systems and commoditizing professional and medical services traditionally offered on a bespoke or personal basis. Now, he predicts that technological advances and consumer demand will bring about a revolution in the delivery of surgical services, leading to the closure of many surgeries and the demise of many surgeons. By 220, he observes patients will be able to use their iPads, spelled E-Y-E, and iPhones, spelled E-Y-E, to self-diagnose themselves. Surgeons, he predicts, will be replaced by nanorobots and technology. And just as many of London's old cloth and wool guilds disappeared in the 18th century, he questions whether other professionals, including eye doctors, might be next, so that future generations one day may ask, ophthalmologists, what on earth were they? Who thinks that sounds a little far-fetched? Some of you not too sure. Well, if it sounds a little far-fetched, or indeed anything I've said this evening you might be calling into question, then fair play to you. Shakespeare once wrote in one of his plays, "Jesters do oft prove prophets." Some of you may have been noticing that I've been jesting with you, and indeed, while some of my comments might be a little bit prophetic, if you smell a rat, then you're entirely correct, because I'm not really an Irishman named Liam Maloney. In fact, I'm an Englishman and a resident of Ohakune by the name of Simon Tupman. And while it's been my pleasure jesting with you this evening, don't say you haven't been warned. The future may change your lives. Derek, thank you for the invitation, and folks, enjoy your evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.